Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Cory Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugling, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugling 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Cory Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I
button?
thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by OnX Maps. And with OnX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
We're also proud to partner with Sitka Gear. And if you go to sitkagear.com, you'll see their full line of clothing. And their tagline is turning clothing into gear. And they are doing that through advanced technology that allows you to stay in the field longer, hunt harder, and stay safer.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
And with that, Cory, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it.
Well, folks, this is Randy. Cory's not here because he's still out in elk camp somewhere. I've got a 2-day break from camping. And I think that's what I'm going to call it, camping, since I didn't shoot an elk. Spoiler alert. but the grouse took a little bit of a beating. Since Cory and I are traveling such different directions this time of year, the idea was that after each of our elk hunts, we'd try to grab whoever the guests were and have them on the Elk Talk Podcast. So that's what you're getting here. And in the room with me here, to my left, is Andrew Gritzbaugh from Gerber Gear and Karrson Koivisto from Gerber Gear. Do you guys have appropriate titles at Gerber, or is this like a...
We're just all Gerber people. Yeah.
Really?
No, my role is the general manager, so I oversee the business, and I also still lead marketing.
Okay.
Yep.
And Karsson, what you're like product chief, president, fill-in president.
I'm the CEO of product development for knives.
For knives.
No, I'm a product manager for knives and cutting tools.
Yeah.
So,
and also very enthusiastic about bugling.
I am
Possibly
now
the
that.
most enthusiastic bugler ever.
I have been on a lot of elk hunts, and the only person I know as enthusiastic about bugling as Karsson is Cory Jacobson. But didn't you say that you consume just about anything Cory writes?
No,
publishes?
actually, you guys said that.
Oh.
In the middle of mockery of me.
Well, but you were always saying, well, you'd ask me questions, and I could tell that they had some genesis from something Cory would have said.
I also remember at some point briefly hearing something about Karsson challenging Cory at an elk calling competition.
He did say
that's
that,
right.
didn't he?
Did
He
I-
said, do you think I'm ready for the elk calling contest?
We both responded with affirmative, so clearly we're going to go forward
we said
and do
go
this
for
thing.
it. It's at elk camp next summer.
You guys can expect to see me holding a trophy next to Cory next year. Army F Elk Calling Championships 2020.
This just
I'll
happened.
hold the trophy.
This just happened right now. This is on. This is on the record.
So
oh man,
you're going to be holding the trophy because Cory asked you to?
No,
like presenting it to Cory.
No, like I
on
came
behalf
into
of
his kingdom and I took his trophy.
Oh man. Oh goodness. This is getting real really quick.
You know what's really good about you saying that, Karsson, is now everybody's going to watch our YouTube video about this day-by-day hunt to see if Karsson really is the elk calling guru or expert that he just kind of implied by saying, I'm coming to your contest and I'm taking Cory's traveling trophy.
I'll tell you though, you know what's really interesting is that Karsson's calling changed and evolved over the course of our hunt because his call got used so much it started to kind of, I don't think it disintegrates the right word, but he had to get a new call which didn't operate the same way. So he used his center drive to actually cut and bend the metal piece, that goes on the top of your mouth to fit, and it gets really good after that. And that's like he custom made his own call in the field.
Did Rocky Jacobson at Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls tell you that you could do that?
One of his
people
employees did. Yeah.
Said, hey, because you got a, what do you say, you had a flat?
Yeah, I
top
had like
to
a
the-
flat wide. They had one call for people with silly mouths like me that it's called the remedy.
Okay.
And it's because something's apparently wrong with me. I need a remedy.
That's an interesting. It's an interesting product name because it presumes that something's wrong with you.
You need something fixed.
This is for you.
Well, a little context. We just got out of 6 days of backcountry elk hunting here in Montana. And the idea was to go and test the full moon theory. You guys have heard Cory and I give differing opinions on the full moon theory. And I'm not sure, did we take a poll of what? Because we went in the day before the peak full moon. First day of hunting was, I think, full moon.
I think it was the full moon the first day.
Yeah, and then slowly coming off the full moon. So we had 3 days of hunting that were coming off the full moon. And it is interesting that so sometimes you can confuse coincidence with fact.
Yeah, causation versus correlation.
Yeah.
Right?
And so was it because after about the second day we started getting a little more dialed in and we'd eliminated the dead country? Or was it just because we were getting further away from the full moon?
I'm pretty sure it was the cameraman's fault, but the second influence would possibly be the moon.
Okay.
But I think your premise is right. It takes you a full day to get a lay of the land, become comfortable with the scenario, see what the animals are doing. I mean, day one I think it was day one we ran into some other hunters. That's a giant variable, right? They've gone and put their scent everywhere and who knows what. So
yeah, and that was one of the things we knew going in. For those of you who follow our YouTube channel, I'd went in and done. Well, first of all, I did a bunch of e-scouting, and I've hunted this place a long time ago. Used to hunt it quite a bit, but a lot has changed. The access has been blocked off by the landowner down below, so you have to come 7 miles from the other direction. There was a fire there about 4 years ago, so that had changed the landscape. So I went in there this summer to see if my e-scouting would hold true, and the place, it was a veritable zoo of elk. And I sent you guys all that stuff. And said,
really excited.
high risk, high reward. The risk would be that the landowner let some people in from below.
That's exactly what you said.
This is the risk.
This is the highest risk of this scenario. And the very first evening, what do?
We run into some guys.
And there's 2 of them, and they tell us, well, there's 4 others, so there's 6 of us.
And none of them look like the type that are going to walk in what we just packed in.
No. I think they were, let's say they were smart by contacting the landowner and somehow arranging only a 1.5 mile hike instead of, I don't know, from the trailhead to where we ran into them was over 7 miles.
Yeah. Path of least resistance.
Yeah.
You know? So, brains
to their credit,
over brawn.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
So that definitely was the game changer. But I'm glad we found that out the very first night, because if we would have been hunting around there and not knowing there was that much hunting pressure, we would have approached things differently and probably not adjusted for it. And that's for me, when I build my plans, having some plan B, C, D, E adaptability is really a big part of how I select spots, and then also how I plan what the day will be. Because we went down into that burn for the first 2.5 days, and you stocked those 2 bulls the first day. Yeah, the first full day.
We heard a bugle the first night,
right?
And then the second day we stocked in on those 2 5 points.
Yeah, and then we went back the next day, and all there were a few cows and some bluegrass.
Yeah. But before, the other, which is interesting, is as soon as you identified that other hunters were the biggest risk and variable. And we were actually fortunate to see that on day 1, because it changes your entire mindset, and we switched from, we're going to walk into, a lot of opportunity,
right,
to, all right, let's get our game faces on. This is going to get athletic. And it did. It got very athletic.
Yeah. And when people see the footage, they'll see what we mean by athletic. It's extremely steep country, and the hunting pressure had pushed these elk way up high, from about 6,500 feet up over 8,000 feet. So every day we're making that trek
just to get in.
Up into those basins and pockets where the elk were. And it was really a process of elimination. So you go to the sweet spot, you're like, well, they're not here, but there's a lot of boot traffic, and there's a lot of other hunters. Doesn't surprise me they're not here. So where'd they go? Well, they either went north or south onto the private, but those guys also told us they did have access to the private.
Right. So
that tells me, well, they're less inclined to go to that private. All right, they must be higher. And that
is where we found.
So I am glad we did run into those guys the first night, and they were nice guys. They were hunting hard and doing what they could, and they seemed a little frustrated, but I can get that. I was pretty frustrated after about day 2.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were a little off their normal routine, the elk, because remember they bedded on that south-facing slope all day, sitting in the sun. And something had just thrown them off their game.
Yeah, that was really weird to see them, because it was hot. It was in the 80s. The second day 2 and 3, and to see elk bedded on a steep south-facing slope like that in the middle of the day, that's really unusual. But I think it was their way to get above the hunting pressure and have a hot nap. Nap on a hot afternoon. But it's just so everyone doesn't think that we are, well, you guys are CrossFit triathlete types. I drive a desk for a living and I eat Dairy Queen.
We're going to have to talk about, we'll come back to it later, but I was feeling a little bit of regret that we didn't go get an ice cream cone at Dairy Queen yesterday.
I know. Well, I just didn't have the tolerance for having to back around and do the 8-point turnaround with the trailer
llama trailers
to go to Dairy Queen. They need a bigger they need a parking lot for people with livestock.
There's probably somebody from Dairy Queen listening right now, and that was a formal suggestion from Randy Newberg.
Recommendation.
So. But anyway,
But we took llamas.
Yeah.
So for people to understand that really does change the game. We're going back in there, and at about the 2 mile mark, there's only one remaining set of boot prints. Mm-hmm. For the first couple miles, it was just like the path to the supermarket. Mm-hmm. And the trailhead, I don't know how many rigs are parked in that one spot, but the whole road was lined with rigs. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. But it gave us an advantage where we could go as far as we did, both from the standpoint of the gear that we could carry to have a little more comfort. And if we shot something, we're going to be able to get it out of there in that hot weather without it spoiling on us if we're in there for a couple days.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, even though there was a lot of rigs, and that does build your eggs. You're driving in. We've come so far, right? It's taken so much to get here, and then you're driving in to park at the trailhead, and you're seeing cars, and it's looking kind of thick, and it is public land hunting, right?
Yeah. Right.
But you don't look at that and go, aha, shucks, let's go back.
Yeah. Right.
No, you just you work through it. Okay, we got to go farther. We got to go harder. We got to rethink the plan, and that type of like little moments of anxiety like that, where 10 minutes go by where you're just questioning everything that has come to that point. I mean, that had to have happened like 25 or 30 times over the last 6 days, where you're just like, oh, this is not going as we thought it was going to go. Yeah. You know, and you had actually brought up a semi-famous general quote, and I can't remember specifically who was quoted, but it was, plans are great until the first shot is fired. Right. Something along those lines. And if that doesn't totally capture this experience, I don't know what does. You know?
And it's very much that way. That you guys probably saw the look on my face as we're driving in there, and it's rig after rig after rig. And I'm thinking, all right, I told them that the worst scenario is lots of hunting pressure in here.
It was deathly silent in the truck.
Here it looks like
it was.
Saturday afternoon at the college football game. Horse trailers and pickup trucks and Toyota Corollas and I mean the whole gamut. But it, as is often the case on public land, it thins out without having to go too far. And what that does is you can kind of on your Onyx draw a boundary of, okay, what's about a 2 to 3 mile just radius of that trailhead. Mm-hmm. And the hunting pressures probably pushed the elk a little bit beyond that. And we knew we were going beyond that. So it was full steam ahead, damn the icebergs, you know?
Totally. Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it too, is, I mean, I was studying the Onyx map as we were hitting that trailhead, and you could see very clearly where some of the other trails were, and we saw a lot of the cars parked on the way up to the trailhead too. I mean, everywhere, not just at the trailhead. And you give yourself 2 or 3 miles, you're gonna thin the herd, so to say, pretty quickly. Yeah. You know.
But to his credit, we ran into a guy back there.
Oh yeah.
So some people either have. I mean, he's a great guy. It was a great joy to talk to him. So was it the second night?
First night coming back.
First night.
Was it the same night we packed in? It was that night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it that?
No, it was like the first
night?
Full day. Yeah, I think so.
It was the second night. Yeah.
Okay.
We're hiking back to our camp in the dark. We got about, I don't know, a mile to go, and from
almost
where we'd stopped hunting. Yeah. So we'd set up our camp way back in there, and then we were hunting even further away from our camp. So at dark, we start hiking back to our camp, and about halfway there, we see a headlamp just up the hill from the trail. And I'm like, I got to go check this out. I think I see a game bag there. And I walk up there, and it's Brad Bush.
Brad Bush.
From Michigan. This guy, he's been elk hunting 3 years. And so I don't want to discount that, but in my mind, I'm thinking either this guy is really a badass or he just doesn't know what he walked into.
Totally.
Enthusiasm has overtaken good judgment.
I had a same first impression, because I was like, you're going to You're out here alone with that? Like, I mean, a lot of times you go hunting by yourself, and it's just great, reprieve, and you're out in nature and you're doing the activity. But you haven't really put the thought through, if I take down a 300-pound animal alone 7 miles in, what does that mean?
Right.
And he was there.
He was. And so he had shot his first bull that evening up on the ridge, and we bumped into each other. He'd just shuttled one load down to the trail we were walking on, and we had a great discussion, a lot of fun talking to him. And I wish it was at the end of our hunt, not at the beginning, because we could have saved him a lot of headache by using our llamas to help him get some of that out.
Yeah.
But he left us a note on our truck. And so between the time when we're back there and when I get to read the note, I'm in my head, I'm like, you know what? Each round trip from that point where he's at is 12 miles.
Right. And that's not flat 12 miles, by the way. This is
no.
This is like you're almost on your hands a couple of times. It's a.
And when he said it was
incredible.
a young bull, not that big, I was happy for him no matter what. But a part of me is like, when you're going up that last big pull, you're going to be glad it was a young bull.
Yeah, totally. Thank goodness there isn't another 100 pounds on this.
So,
and I also think on that point, like, it would have been a really great thing for us to have been able to drop load and just like help him out. And if he really needed to help and had a bigger animal, we probably would have done that. But there's also something about what he committed to, driving out alone, finding a spot alone, doing that alone, being successful alone, and packing it out alone. It gives him the whole story. Actually, if we had like inserted ourselves more politely, we kind of would have robbed him of that.
Yeah.
And that badge that he has now is so impressive. I that whole night I was just like, Brad Bush is the man. Like, geez, so awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But I mean, you think about what. I don't know what you'd call it, enthusiasm, fortitude. Some people have that. And for me, it was so rewarding. And so at first, he's looking through the headlamp, glows, and like, he hears my voice. He's like, Randy Newberg?
Oh my goodness, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Which I've heard, by the way, like 5 times since I've been with you.
90%
Every time you get out of the car, it's like, Randy Newberg.
But
all right, here we go again.
Sign up for 20 minutes.
I asked him, I said, well, how did you find this place? He said, well, I looked for Burns.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang it. I shouldn't be talking so much about Burns. But he did an e-scouting plan. He identified everything that I think is critical when you're building an e-scouting plan. He found the place where the elk are going to be. Based on this time of year, it's more of a food pattern, because where the cows are is where the best food is, or the other way around. Where the best food is, that's where the cows are going to be. Where the cows are, that's where the bulls are going to be. And he just picked that spot based on his e-scouting, and he had success. I mean,
the other interesting thing is he wasn't if you were e-scouting this particular area, you would have arrived at where we started on day 1.
Right.
That's not where he got his bull. He was quite a bit farther up, above the drainages, out of the pressure, and I think he'd been there for a couple of days before us.
He said it had rained on him for 2 or 3 days before that.
So he had gone through a similar Plan B evaluation that we were kind of in the middle of going through, actually, and he was just a couple of days ahead of us.
And I think you talk about the plans put together. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've picked up from this hunt is just getting your emails in July with like 7 screenshots of Onyx with 25 pins on them about here's where we're going to go on day 1, day 2, day 3. And you're like the thought that went into it. And I think one of the mistakes so many people make is you get Onyx because all the best hunters use Onyx and XYZ. And you get out there and you're like, okay, I got Onyx. Now what should I do? Versus I'm going to spend 2 hours, 3 hours, a couple days a week coming into season, put together in my mind on bullet points, actually on paper. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's why. And then laying it out. I think it's so easy to get the right gear and then show up and then hope things fall into place.
Right.
Yeah. And that is not the case of what we did here, and not what Brad Bush did either. So I think that's great.
Yeah. No, I would say your point, Karsson, is a lot of people that I encounter, and I say I encounter. I'm talking from personal experience too. I've told you around camp there that one night I hunted elk 6 years, making every stupid mistake known to man, and did not shoot an elk until opening morning of the 7th year.
Yeah.
And I went through that equipment phase. Mm-hmm. I bought every trinket, every doodad. If you would have told me that a dream catcher with seashells from the coast of Chile would have helped me kill an elk, I would have somehow found a way to buy a dream catcher with seashells from the coast of Chile.
Which, by the way, might actually work. So
don't count it out.
Don't count it out yet. But.
I mean, that's how far I was into this equipment phase.
Yeah.
And
the equipment phase.
That's where I live my life. Is the equipment phase.
I also am deeply in this equipment phase.
But as quick as I started transitioning and just forcing myself more into the information and planning stage, all of a sudden, these elk, it's a lot easier to kill elk when you think about it, and when you research about elk and you learn more about elk, what their needs are, where they're going to be in September versus where they're going to be in November, or where they're going to be in November in New Mexico versus September in Montana. I mean, for me, anyhow, I came to some of those conclusions by reading and researching, and a lot of trial and error. I think those 6 years of failure were the best school of hard knocks I could have ever went through. It certainly built the mindset that I think you guys demonstrated and saw this week, that mentally, there's probably nothing more challenging to the hunter psyche than public land, highly pressured bull elk in September.
Yeah.
When you have to get them at a very close distance.
Yeah.
Because if we go through the future days of this hunt, it was the close but
not close enough.
Yeah.
I think, and I think we should talk a little bit about some of those other days, because there's some just remarkable insights that I personally had. But I think that point about, toughening your mind, like becoming conscious with dealing with adversity, is part of what makes all of this so special. It's just one of many aspects, but this is not for, anybody who is expecting anything. You should have zero expectations. -1 if it's possible expectations when you go into this, because any expectation you have is going to get blown almost immediately. Yeah. And preparing your mind to deal with that reality is, I think, part of this whole chess game, Yeah. And I was sharing with Karsson late last night, you get out there and you get into this, and you become, it takes me a solid day before I can shake off the, realities of the world and get truly focused into this. But scaling up and down shale at 8,000 feet, when you're chasing an elk and you're on something, and you've been strategizing, and we're going to go over there, we're going to go around this, and we'll talk about that probably, but the notion of, I might get tired, doesn't even enter your mind.
No.
We're
going to go 500 up there? When? 5 minutes? All right.
Do we have to wait that long?
Yeah.
Can we go now?
You become so focused, and your mind becomes tuned to the mission at hand, that your personal comfort, your physical exertion, your appetite, all of that stuff, it becomes not even present within your mind. You become truly focused on what the task at hand is. And I think we didn't do the math we should have done. I think we traversed almost 3,000 over the course of those days, 2,600 to 3,000, somewhere in there, elevation.
Stairs or
or flights, or
what do they call? Oh, you guys have that track.
We're gonna look it up after this. I meant to do that beforehand, but
or stories or something.
Anyway, we went up and downhill a whole lot.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't go on a normal day hike and go, oh, should we go to the top of that mountain and see what's on the other side? No, I'm not doing that.
Is there a trail?
Yeah.
Is it a slow grade?
Yeah.
So the focus that you benefit from by being out in the field and getting on this is just tremendous.
Yeah.
And I think there's something additionally to that when you're backcountry and there's no cell phone service and you're not coming back to a car camp or something like that, you're that much more tuned in that I am here to do nothing but pursue elk.
Yep.
At all costs.
Yeah. No, there really isn't a fallback from a like, oh, let's just hit the whole reset button. Once you go in that far, you're there.
Yeah.
You've planted your stake in the ground, and it's not coming out until the hunt's over.
Yep.
So you could mentally kind of kick the dirt, throw your sucker in the dirt, and, take your cookies
Have
and
a
go
little
home or whatever.
Pout a little bit.
Yeah, but you're here.
Yeah.
We've invested all this to get here. We better figure it out.
Yeah.
And it took a few days, and it seems like it always does. People always say, Newberg, you guys always kill something on the last day. Why never on the first day? Well,
Yeah.
because for a lot of reasons. One, I'm not that good of an elk hunter. I can kill something the first day every day. And for people who haven't experienced these, and a lot of listeners have, it is not as easy as you would think it is based on what you consume in media.
Oh, no.
I mean, this is
so far from it.
This is not a place with undisturbed elk, no hunting pressure, and elk that don't get called a lot.
Right.
This is the opposite of every one of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is not flat, general, nice rolling ponderosa forest. This is the when we went up the day that you guys shot the blue grouse, the tree I was taking my nap under, there was mountain goat hair.
Yeah, of course. Was there?
Yeah, I meant to show you guys
yeah.
that. There's a big ball of white fur stuck against it. And it's like, oh, the mountain goats are coming in here.
Yeah.
Which gives people a little bit of a feel, and they'll see it in video. And a lot of people listening are like, oh, yeah, been there, done that.
Seen that. Yeah.
But for me, these type of hunts, when they're this hard and this challenging, really help harden my mind of, you know what, Randy? It's that reminder again that just because you got lucky one trip last year or the year before or this year, don't be thinking you got this figured out.
Yeah. Every game is different. Yeah.
But,
totally.
So the second day, that was the day we scaled way up there, and all we saw were those 5 cows, right?
That was the third day. The second day was the 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, third
bulls.
day.
The 2 bulls, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was a really positive moment for morale because it was a signal that, okay,
Yeah.
they're here. They're just,
Yeah, they're just in tougher spots than we'd hoped for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that third day, scaling up there, again, this is when it's archery hunting, how many of these 100 dots need to be connected just perfectly for it to happen.
Yeah.
So we're trekking up this steep, rocky, nasty face, which I thought was going to take us about a half hour. And I was off by about 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say about 100% off, yeah.
About an hour and 15 minutes later, we start getting to the crest of the ridge, and there are fresh elk droppings everywhere right in front of me. I mean, like, still got slime on them.
Yeah.
And I stop, and I tell the guys, I'm like, look, they might be right over this lip. Send Dale, our camera guy, with Andrew, because since Karsson had the stock the day before, and now Andrew's turn. And then I send Karsson off to my left, kind of guard the back door. And as they're moving to their locations, Karsson, you get like, what, 30 yards away, if that?
Yeah. I was climbing up there, and all of a sudden I see the head of a cow, and then I see her moving to the left, and then I see 3, 4 more all in a row, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I tell these guys stop moving right now? And so I took my eyes off them, so I didn't get to see what else was there. But I was just doing the biggest hand gestures to try to stop everybody. I looked like an air traffic controller.
Yeah, but the point of that, the way I brought that up is, if we would have stopped 20 yards further down the mountain, the odds are we would not have got to that first little false crest, and they wouldn't have seen us.
Right.
If we would have but So the purpose is to demonstrate just how many close and the almost oh dang if this it happens daily in archery elk hunting.
Yeah.
If we would have been in, I wish they would have pooped 20 yards further down the mountain because I would have stopped there.
Right.
Or I wish I would have taken more time getting up the mountain. Then they would have grazed a little further away from us. And then I think if we would have called, they would have come over the crest to at least look to see what's there. And one of you guys would have had a shot.
And that's totally where you, especially when you're under heavy physical exertion, which we were, climb that hill, you get distracted from your mission.
Yeah.
And you lose a little bit of your patience, and you start to kind of think, I'm just going to get to the top of that hill. And you forget that, no, at every moment, 360 degrees, I'm checking tracks, I'm checking wind, I'm listening, I'm stopping to make sure I'm not making too much noise. And there's 4 of us with, Dale's got a freaking camera on his back. Yeah. It's, you lose the focus and the intention sometimes when you just kind of get a little brash. And I'm not saying we got brash with it at that moment, but to your point, if we would have been a little bit more mindful in every step, we could have had 2% chance,
right?
A little bit more visibility, and we could have got more tactical on that group.
Right.
But you don't know that till you get up there, and it also, I was gonna like with Karsson's, waving hands like. He's like yelling but not saying anything.
Yeah.
His mouth is like wide open. And he's like, but nothing's actually coming out. And it happened numerous times through the day. But if you're in it, this is a team game. This is we're like a fire team in the infantry out there, and you should. If you're going to get into this, you should predefine some hand signals. What does call again mean? What does come back to me? What does stop? And in retrospect, I think we would have benefited a lot by just, identifying maybe 5 to 7 things that we had so we could communicate, because we're not on radios, so that's cool. But anyway, back to that little group of cows.
Yeah. But the good part was, it did another thing. It confirmed that these elk are up higher.
Yep.
Because at that point, we were at about 8,000 feet, and we encountered them, and they headed around the slope. I don't know if did they go higher or lower, do you think? Because we lost them after
we didn't
that.
know.
We couldn't figure it out.
We played the game higher though, and that's where we ran into
bluegrass.
The other
Randy's trophies.
So Dale has never seen. So he's worked for us now since July, and he's never seen me be like completely aghast of, what did you just say? What? He comes back because I'm back there cow calling, and he's like, man, you should have seen these bluegrass. They're 5 feet away. We killed them with a rock. I'm like, well, you filmed it, right? Well, no, we're elk. I'm like, and if you thought I was making this up, and this was serious. So I huddle up the team, and we have the grouse lecture. I thought we had that discussion at the trailhead when I said, look, grouse get shot. Bugles will always be there. Grouse maybe not. And so I huddle everyone up. I'm like, look, I've purposefully left my bow at camp because I don't want to be tempted to try be part of the setup. I just want to call and help. And then you guys don't shoot the bluegrass.
Well, I gotta put it on the table here, because Dale was following me up this ridge, and we're over 8,000 feet.
Right.
And I got an arrow in, and I'm sneaking around, and I think there's a possibility these cows are up there, because we didn't know where they went.
Right.
But we're just gonna play the field. We're gonna get to the edge of the tree line and just make sure we clear that space. And this grouse walks out, and it's 5 or 6 feet in front of me, and it looks at me with this dumb face like, hey, dude. I'm like, what is this thing? And I look at Dale, and he's like, keep going. He kind of waves at me, and so I'm like, whatever. So keep moving up, and then it flies off, and then 2 or 3 more fly off, and I think, that must be these grouse things that Randy keeps talking about. What a great joke.
Yeah.
And we get back, and Randy... He literally did sit us down and lecture us, and I was like, he's serious about shooting these
very
things.
serious
I'm like,
right now.
why didn't I just I was right there, And so that was pretty cool, actually. But so anyway.
But Karsson saved the day, because on our way back down the ridge, he finds a little brood of them.
Yeah, 3, right? Sitting in a tree? Yeah.
Sitting low on the lowest limb on a tree.
Which, it's amazing that they sit there and watch their neighbor get shot. And then don't even move a muscle. They just sit there like, I wonder if that'll happen to me now.
Well, but think about it. An arrow is just a It's not
very
a
silent.
boom.
Yeah.
It's true, but 3 inches away from me, something just went flying through my neighbor, and he's now on the ground. I'll just sit here.
Look, sometimes evolution, whatever, the creator hands us a gift. And one of the gifts we've been handed is that blue grouse don't really care if their buddy just got an arrow run through. So don't make apologies for that. Just shoot the second one and the third one and the fourth one.
Yeah. And then you remember, so I shot the first one, Andrew pinned the second one, and then we were like, wait, is that a third one? And as I was going up there to get mine off the arrow, and all I had with me was my bugle tube, and you were like, hit him with the bugle tube. So I took a swing, and he got smart on that, and he moved.
Yeah, he flushed before you gave it a valiant effort with your bugle tube. We probably shouldn't even say that. I don't know if it's legal to kill a grouse with a bugle tube, but at that point, walking down, I was trying to hide my frustration, but I'm like, I could not believe these guys thought I was joking about the grouse. And but you guys were saved by the fact that you each shot one on the way down.
Yeah, we got redemption.
And then we did a quick gutting and gilling exercise on grouse.
Yeah.
And I stuffed it in my pack, and we ate it that night.
Yeah.
And what do you guys think of blue grouse over an open fire? No seasonings, no anything.
No, just raw on a rock. That was, without question, some of the best fowl I've ever. I mean, I was taken. It was so awesome.
It seems like it's pre-marinated.
I know. I can't believe it.
Yeah. It just must be their cuisine.
The flavor of the meat is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And actually, we saw as you were kind of disassembling them.
Polite way.
Which is remarkably easy, I might say. Like, I feel like I could do that in 5 minutes now. Watch that video, because the way Randy does this is artful. I'm sure if I did it, it would be very
not artful.
It would not be artful. But, they were eating these little red berries, and we didn't see these little berries anywhere up on the hill. So, like, where are these coming from? But those little, that feed that they were on must have been helping influence the way, they taste. But what a tremendous, that is just a gift from the mountain. Mm-hmm. Those things are awesome.
Yeah, and people think I'm joking about this grouse problem. I
don't think that anymore.
No, and I could sense that you guys had some hesitation about using very expensive broadheads and beautiful arrows just for a grouse.
Yeah, but
But now in retrospect, you probably are like, that was a worthwhile investment.
In a moment, in a moment, Yeah. And so, what a great break from all the dehydrated food, too, to have some fresh meat on the fire, kind of halfway through the hunt is just like, that's mountain living. That's so good.
Yeah, and what a great break from the mental frustration of
I wasn't frustrated. Were you frustrated?
I was. I was so mad.
So mad.
So we'd had some close calls. One of the things we skipped over was the second day. Karsson was talking about these two bulls bedded in this hot south-facing hillside, and he made a stock on them, and it was ridiculously tough conditions. It's a scree slope to get up there. You got to disappear out of sight, walk up this canyon, and try to figure out which one of these shoots.
Yeah. It all looked the same, and I couldn't find a landmark because we didn't have a vantage point on the bottom.
Yeah.
You should talk. What were you when you were down in that valley? Like, what was going?
Oh my gosh. It was, first of all, heart rate 195, not because of the mountain, because I was about to knock and draw an arrow.
Yeah.
We dropped down there, and first thought was, oh, good. The cover is way better than we thought, because everything was burnt down to nearly toothpicks from the burn. So it seemed like it was going to be really slow moving. We might be visible. We get down there, and between us and the elk were enough toothpicks that it was thick. They all still had their branches, but no foliage. And so we're covered, and then we're like, okay, this is good. We'll just keep moving up this creek. And then the next question was, wait, we didn't get we didn't drop a pin on where they were on our maps. We didn't pick a landmark. We couldn't, even if we picked a landmark, we couldn't see it from down here.
Down in the canyon.
The pitch of where we were at, it was just, it wasn't possible. So Dale and I were walking up, and we made our best call on on which draw it was, and what our plan was to come up, gain our elevation one draw prior to where the elk were, and then bump over the knob and take a shot from on top of the knob, which should have been, well, we found out it was exactly 40 yards, and it would have been a practice range shot.
Yeah.
Very, very good shot. But what we did was one draw too many. We start working up the next draw, and that was actually exactly where they were. So we came up right underneath them, and Andrew and Randy, who had a vantage point from where we started, saw them both stand up in unison, look at us, and just book across the whole mountainside up and over some scree. And oh man, it's one thing when you work so hard and the wind changes or something out of your control changes.
Totally, that you don't control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be fine. And that's part of the game. But when you make a stupid choice like forgetting to drop a pin or not being able to find a landmark, that's not really a choice. That was just a challenge of the location. But we chose to go up that one. And that was the wrong one. And you feel like you wear that a little more than like, oh, we got winded on a swirling wind that they smelled us and they were gone. So I was dealing with that the rest of that day.
Yeah, and Karsson is, I don't think, probably a lot of people don't know Karsson. Karsson is one of the most like positive and constantly animated and optimistic people you'll ever meet. And he was visibly distressed with a fake smile on. Like he was still putting it on, but you were like, I can see right through that, man. Your head is spinning right now. And that just... it's rough, man.
I hate it. I was not finding pleasure in your disappointment, Karsson. No. But there is something about observing someone who's like bouncing around, like, oh, let's go, and bugling every time to coming back completely deflated. In the course of however long that took you, a half hour.
Yeah, 45 minutes. Probably.
I thought that maybe you went to the moon and had a personality change. You could not have seen a greater contrast in personalities between the guy who was just getting ready to go and arrow an elk and the guy who came back from a failed stop.
Yeah. Well, and there's backstory too. I mean, this is my 8th. So I started hunting elk 2011, my first year at Gerber. You start at Gerber, you look around, you're like, all these guys do this hunting thing, and I just play basketball.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fit in here. And I ended up finding a buddy that elk hunted, and so within 6 months of starting at Gerber, I had bought 5 guns and was hunting everything that was in season because I'm just
gear phase, right?
I was in my equipment phase.
Yeah.
But it was like 2 wires got connected when I started at Gerber, and I was like, oh, I didn't grow up hunting, but I love this thing. So I started hunting 2011, and this is my 10th elk tag. And I have punched 0 of them. And so there's that backstory to explain a little bit of my personality change, because I'm like 10 years coming together, or 10 tags, 8 years coming together right now. And then I stepped up the wrong freaking draw. It just kills me. I'm not mad.
Not at all. Yeah, clearly.
It's funny now, and when you see the footage of this hunt, Karsson is such a great personality. He takes a lot of ribbing really well. And he kind of sets himself up for it at times. So it's like, man, someone served me up a home run pitch. I could at least bunt here. But at that point, I could tell, now is not the time to rib Karsson at all. Just let the pot cool down.
I think that was good.
It's funny, too, because Randy and we were, I don't know what it was, maybe 200 or 300 across this valley, watching them on binos kind of, go up the valley. And I lose sight of them because it's so thick and has good concealment down there. And just, we're chilling and waiting. And then we see those 2 bucks just stand up, boom, just like that.
2 bulls.
Or 2 bulls, pardon me, and stand up like that. Well, they were small.
Get out of here! They were 5 points.
They were young, but yeah, totally. So
you get out of calling it bucks by saying they were small.
They looked like they might have been bucks.
So anything that Karsson said was big, Andrew would say, "Oh, that's just a buck."
Speaking of razzing Karsson.
So if you hear Andrew use the term buck and bull simultaneously, it's his way of getting at Karsson that Karsson shoots little things, or is enamored by little
hasn't yet shot a little thing.
Yeah,
I've shot little things, not elk.
So,
Leave me alone.
But anyway, you see these two pop up at the same exact time, and you see them scurry up this hill over the course of kind of 15 minutes with their mouths open, breathing. I mean, they clearly got the wind. And as part of the team, we're sitting still, I don't know, 250, 300 away, and you're just like, oh man, such a bummer, you know.
And then you watch us stalk up there as if they're still there.
I know, and you guys are still going. You're watching your buddies about to face deployment. Yeah. Oh man.
But so that we needed that backstory to give you some idea of the frustration level that Karsson was carrying, not just in his pack, but in his entire being. The next day when we scaled an even higher ridge and saw nothing but two blue grouse. Yeah. And I apologized a couple times, and I'll apologize again for my excitement and my shoot him, he's right there. I mean, I know I get a little overbearing when grouse show up. So you guys,
it made the day though. It was just exactly like a little injection of positive morale where you're like, you know what? And even though they were only like 10 or 15 yards away, like, taking a tiny little bird with an arrow is just like, okay, we're playing the game. We're ready. We're capable. Yep. Let's go do this.
But didn't you feel that was kind of a big release? All right, we're out here to have fun. And that was 10 minutes of absolute
total fun. Yeah.
And so it kind of pulls your mind away from all those frustrations of the previous 2 days.
Yeah.
And
it's medicine. I think you've sold me. One of the 5 arrows in my quiver will always have a grouse tip now.
Yeah. Good.
I think it's going to happen.
Totally.
All right. Well, I'm making converts one at a time.
Slowly.
My grandma always told me, if you're going to be a missionary, you can't do it in the church. You got to get out in the bars and the back alleys. And so
there you go.
I'm a missionary to convert every elk hunter to be more appreciative of the fine qualities of shooting grouse that are only 5 yards away.
Yeah.
Do make no apologies.
No apologies. Nope. Yeah. So
it's
fuel for the soul.
Yeah. So that.
But you're really good if you can hit them with a bugle tube. Which I can't do.
If you could have pulled that off, that would have been one of the most profound pieces of footage. That remarkable pieces of footage.
Like a baseball bat hit.
Yeah. But look at it this way: you wouldn't have touched any of the meat.
It would have been bruised.
Yeah. No. I mean, there wouldn't have been an arrow through it.
Yeah.
You'd have just stunned him. I would have run over there and I'd have wrung his neck so fast.
Well, you don't know how hard I swing a bugle tube.
Fair. So, anyhow, before we get too far down the tangential path of grouse, that night kind of turned out to be a dud, though.
It was.
We saw nothing.
Yeah.
Karsson bugled until his lip swelled up like he'd been playing the tuba for a week.
Yeah.
And we went back to camp and said, you know what, we got to go a different direction.
Now, was that the same? We walked down. Is that when we saw the blood trail?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we were slowly falling into a place of, do we have to make a major change?
Yeah.
Right. We were talking about possibly pulling camp.
Right.
We were talking about how far out could we go to different places. Mm-hmm. We were like starting to feel like this area is spent, and that's a really challenging kind of mindset to hold, because you're like, again, we have come so far and we are here and this is the spot. They're here, but we can't get to them. And so, mentally, a lot of us were kind of like, all right, like really searching for a sign, and the grouse was super helpful. But by the time we got back to camp, we were doing some very serious explorations around what was going to be next.
Yeah. And for me, I'm sure people think that I'm always dallying on my cell phone, but contrary to popular impression, I was looking at my Onyx and just analyzing it like, all right, what are we doing wrong? Mm-hmm. What could be the answer? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, all right, we've spent 2.5 days here. right on the lower or the upper edge of the burn, which was down below our camp. And yeah, we found a few elk, but the amount of tracks we saw, the amount of rubs, the amount of everything, we knew there had to be elk there.
Yeah.
So where would they go in response to these 6 other hunters that had got there a few days before us? Well, high.
Yeah.
So that's what I threw out there was, let's go up from camp tomorrow. And it worked out that we really started getting into elk. And I guess it really isn't like some great the light bulb went on.
Right.
It was just a process of elimination. A lot of times my planning or my e-scouting plans are, all right, if they aren't here, then I know it's less terrain. As you get further into the hunt, your map becomes smaller and smaller because you're eliminating where they're not.
Yeah,
Right.
A big process of finding where they are is eliminating where they're not.
Totally, yeah.
And we'd spent 2.5 days eliminating part of where they weren't.
Yeah. How did we end up choosing to go in that first draw?
I think
Because you were bugling that morning.
We heard a
and
response.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we left camp a little before legal shooting light, and
Yep.
we'd walked a half mile.
And we were going the opposite direction from our initial target
Back
area.
toward the
back
truck.
towards
We're
the
going
truck.
higher.
Yep.
Yeah,
Higher.
that's right.
And Karsson, when you tell Karsson, hey, Cory Jacobson says you can't bugle too much, you got to be careful when you say that to Karsson.
Those words.
It's kind of like having a thoroughbred at the Kentucky Derby and say, go. You aren't, I think it was Lucas Burt from Leopold said his dad's favorite saying is, don't say whoa in a horse race.
Just never. Yeah, right.
So when you give Karsson the green light to bugle, you're not getting that horse to slow down.
Yeah.
So, but it worked.
It did. And we heard,
Yeah.
I think, the other part was again, staying very focused because you get onto a trail and you're moving towards a location. You're not moving through the bush.
Right.
You get a little lackadaisical. You start to get a little noisy. You're sipping on your Camelback or whatever. And the response we heard to one of Karsson's bugle up one of these valleys was very soft.
Yeah.
Like 2
out of 4 of us heard the first response.
And it was
I
like
remember
a
that now.
debate on, was that a bugle or a tree swaying?
Yeah.
And it was a lot of interpretation.
Yeah.
And but that carefulness was, that led to 2 days of hardcore chase, right?
Yeah.
So, and we could have missed that in a moment if we were just not paying
Chewing on
attention.
something.
Yeah, totally.
That's all it would have
or
taken.
talking and jaw-jacking and just trying to
Making fun of me.
move, dropping Karsson jokes. So many great jokes.
I do think, though, that right there is something that the fact that we found that bull got located was, and we were making a little bit of fun of how Cory says you can't call too much.
Yeah.
What if we would have walked another, say, 400 yards because of how windy it was that morning? If Karsson hadn't been calling every 300-400 yards, maybe we would have missed the spot where we could have heard that faint bugle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Easily.
People might say, oh, geez, you guys call too much. Well, because you were calling as much as you were, that's why we heard that way up the mountain.
Yeah.
On that windy morning, and that kind of became a pivot to the direction the hunt took.
Yeah, and you also when you're standing next to the guy bugling, you're like, my God, this is loud. Everything in this mountain range can hear this. No, you get 200, 300 away from your hunting party, it gets really soft really quick, especially if there's lots of hills and wind and vegetation, which there was. So this idea of you can't call too much, I really subscribe after this experience because you can hear it because you're there, but you're talking about up these draws and stuff that don't assume the elk can hear you.
Yeah. And I was just grateful that you had the enthusiasm. I don't have the lung capacity to bugle as much as you do.
I need to make a statement here to clarify that I am entirely sarcastic about the Army F elk calling championship with Cory. This is my first year of actually calling, and I spent 2 hours at the Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls booth at the Army F elk camp show, and I just said, here's a couple products, teach me how to call. And this is my first year calling. So it was a joke. So, Cory, not serious, okay.
But I want to strike all that from the record. I think Karsson is totally serious. I want to see this showdown next year.
You know, when I saw Karsson starting to get a little bit down in the dumps, I got the sense you were starting to think it's my calling talent that is resulting in not a lot of responses.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, dude, you are calling really good. Don't worry about that. It's just tough conditions.
Yeah.
And the elk have been pushed to someplace where they're not. So keep doing it.
All right.
Because you are a good bugler.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. So don't.
What I thought you were going to bring up was the WL right there.
Oh, yeah. We did wapiti laryngitis.
Wapiti laryngitis.
Yeah, we did. We concluded that the full moon possibly brings on a condition called wapiti laryngitis. But I still am not convinced. I think it's a random affliction that just floats across the elk landscape in unpredictable patterns. So don't think that just because you're not hearing bugles that it's your calling. It could be the fact that they have laryngitis or they just aren't there.
Yeah. And don't assume that a really soft bugle means a really small bull.
Right. Yeah,
that was certainly not the case.
Right. So so kind of to continue on that, we knew the weather forecast called for rain the next day, and it changed a little bit of how you approach things when you know, wow, tomorrow we could get rained out. And as someone who's hunted elk a lot, I know better than to follow elk up a drainage. Yeah, you got the wind in your face in the morning when the thermal's coming down, and it gives you this false sense of, oh, this is going to work. This is going to work. Well, we got up there right underneath him. It took a while. I mean, going up that creek bottom and doing the steeplechase of climbing over deadfall. I mean,
a lot of side hilling, really slick.
And then we get there, and he's on this little flat bench above us we didn't know if he had cows. He was bugling very passive.
Yeah. And sometimes just a chuckle, no bugle.
Yeah.
Very odd.
And then all of a sudden, the thermals start switching from downhill to uphill, and we're in a bad spot.
Yep. And there's no getting out of it too. You are where you are, and the situation changed.
So
we put ourselves there.
We pulled out as quick as that started happening, and we side hilled up, trying to get away our wind cone, the cone of where your scent disperses, trying to get that up the hill away from him. And so we spent a good chunk of that day waiting for the wind to get better, trying to listen, hoping he'd bugle once in a while. Did he bugle at all while we waited
I don't
for
think
better
he did.
wind? I didn't hear
He
it.
stopped.
And we never had eyes on him either, right, that morning. So we were way up that creek and drainage, and we were hearing him, so we had a general sense. I think a few of us had tried to make some marks on Onyx which later Karsson found out he was extremely accurate with his
I hit the tree with my guess on Onyx. I hit it to the tree.
But, it was situational kind of where we were, and getting out of the wind was a huge piece. But this on that point, too, this whole experience was a major lesson in wind. Making decisions around wind, because that was a huge factor the whole week. But, by the end of that day, we had had a general sense there was a bull up there. No other information other than he possibly was coming down or on the backside of a bad case of wapiti laryngitis. And, and then it was time to, I think we packed out after that, right?
Kind of. There were all those wallows down in
that's right.
Flat.
There was 4 or 5 that you guys found, right?
Rubs everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is, our last location he's slightly uphill on a bench, maybe 200 yards from all these wallows. So we're sitting on this slope, and this is mental note for me because I know better. So this slope is on the west side of the drainage. It faces east, so as quick as the sun goes behind the horizon, that's the first place that cools, and you get the downhill thermal quicker than you do at the very bottom of the basin.
Right, but that's a key piece of information, right? Like sun position affects wind.
Right. And so I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, man, we only got about an hour and a half. We got to get down there and set up on him. So as quick as we start getting down in there, well, the west-facing slope on the east side still has the sun hitting parts of it. Mm-hmm. So that's still in an uphill thermal pattern. So we get down where these two drainages meet, and it's just like a cyclone of wind swirling and
changing every moment.
Yeah.
And, it's in my face. It's on my back. This is all bad.
Yeah, and we tried to get a response out of him, but I kind of made the call that, look, guys, we got to get out of here with this bad wind because we're probably going to screw him up and just push him completely out of this basin. And that's a hard call to make because, one, we knew there was a bull within a couple hundred yards of us.
Yeah.
We knew tomorrow we could get rained out.
Yeah.
But with wind, you're going to screw that up if you don't play the wind right.
And it wasn't like we had all these different opportunities. Where do you want to go in the morning? There's so many elk abound everywhere. It was like, you're starting to hang success on this one opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
and I remember us saying if this doesn't produce this morning, we were going to pull stakes and move back out of that area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is a big decision with llamas and whatnot.
And then the second Randy and I came upon those wallows, Randy looks at me and goes, "We're not going anywhere." I'm like, all right, okay. Randy likes what he sees.
Oh, he'd been in that wallow that morning.
Yeah.
You could tell. I mean,
it was.
And one of those wallows was this office we're sitting in, it was as big as this office.
Huge. Yeah.
It's the biggest wallow I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And he had tore up all kinds of trees around there.
Yeah.
I'm like, whew. We can't let this one get away from us. And so we pulled out that night, and sure enough, it started raining that night. I remember sleeping in my tent, hearing the pelting of rain, like, oh, no. But we got up, and it had at least stopped raining.
It was very wet, though.
Yeah.
It had really come down.
Yeah, so we go back up, same place, have Karsson do his walk 300 yards and call, walk 300 yards and call. And did we hear him from the trail that morning, or did we go up the ridge a ways before we heard him?
Well, what I think, if I remember right, we didn't call, and we got in there with him completely not knowing.
That's right.
Because we heard a bugle from him before we didn't
make any call, but when we were walking up to that drainage, we just heard him bugle.
Yeah, it was serendipity, for sure. He called right when we were there.
Yeah, and it same sound, like a weak passive bugle, same location, same drainage. Just, in my mind, I'm like, whew, at least we didn't blow him out of here last night with that screwy wind. And we hiked up the ridge, I don't know, another 400 feet of vertical, and then we got an eye on his cows. And so
that's right.
That was really helpful. As much as most people say in archery hunting, you don't got to worry about glassing anything. I think that was very helpful for us to get an eye on his cows. And then, Andrew, you're looking way over to the left, trying to find the cows, and you find the bull.
Yeah, behind a tree.
I don't see the cows, but I see the bull. That'll work.
This is good.
So that was really helpful to confirm what was there, what size of bull, or it was just a general age class of what the bull was. And that explained a little bit about why he was probably more passive than, say, I think he was a 3.5-year-old. It was his first year as a 6-point, it looked like. And a lot of times those bulls just aren't going to light it up because they finally got a couple cows. Last year, every time they had a cow, someone come and just put a serious thumping on them. So he's trying to be a little quiet, but yet tell those girls, like, I am the real guy here. I'm just being modest.
Stick around.
And so that once you know that, it changes your approach of, okay, how aggressive am I going to be? He has cows or doesn't have cows. That means, or for me anyhow, that gets to the decision tree of should I bugle more? Should I cow call more? Stuff like that. And this is a lesson. Cory's head's going to swell with all the accolades we're giving him here. But 4 years ago, I hunted with Cory, and we had a similar setup. And he took me, this elk's 150 yards away from us. He takes me on a mile loop up over these ridges and around. And I'm like, what the hell, man? What?
It's right there.
Yeah. And he's like, no, there's going to be a bad wind in that bottom that we got to go through. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
We made a 2-mile loop, gained, I don't know how many hundreds. Or 1,000.
Maybe 1,000.
That was the biggest climb we had.
Yeah. Over 1,000.
And you look at that map and you're like, we're going around this entire basin. Yeah. I mean, this was, you looked at it and you're like, oh, all right, like Randy, there's a lot of ways to close the distance. This is not one of them. Yeah.
But this is actually going to make us farther away.
I know. You guys were probably thinking, what is this guy doing? But the point was, I was not going to get caught in a situation like the day before where we were below him. Mm-hmm. We were going to be above him. That gave us every possible option. Yeah. And because it was cold, windy, cloudy, there wasn't much in the way of thermals that day. I mean, there was...
I remember us actually commenting like, wow, it is quiet. Mm-hmm. Like the overcast was kind of you have that eerie kind of like echoey sound of your own voice and your own footstep. Mm-hmm. And that was interesting. We did have the advantage though that because the rain came that night, a lot of the terrain had softened a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we weren't getting that constant like break and crunch that you usually have. And that was kind of a relief too. But it also made you more sensitive to it too, because you could hear everything just as well. So it wasn't like it was an advantage necessarily. It just made it a different layout, a different situation. Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, what time was it before we decided to finally make a move on him and we felt the wind was right? Like,
it was like, I want to say 12:30 or 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Karsson looks at me, he pulls out his phone and he starts recording and he goes, Andrew, what time of day today are you going to shoot this bull? And I take a moment and 2:46 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the record. We'll leave that there for a minute.
We'll come back to that.
So we finally about 12:30 we're convinced the wind is what the wind's going to be. That we're done with this mixing of uphills and downhills.
And that's one of your rules of thumb, right? By the time it gets to what time in the morning, it's kind of how it's going to be.
If it's a sunny day, usually by 11 o'clock, you've got consistent thermals.
That's
all right. Where they're going uphill, they're going to be going uphill. If they're going downhill because of shade, so there's not nearly. It still happens based on which slope and whether it's the sun's hitting it or it's shaded, but there's a lot less craziness of wind after about 10:30, 11 in the morning.
Okay.
So that was when I just said, you know what? This is what we got to deal with. These are the winds. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
So that Andrew can kill this bull at 2:46 Mountain Standard Time.
Mountain Standard Time.
Just to clarify.
But I think we were, it takes 3 or 4 days to really get your ninja skills going.
Totally.
Right. The first couple stops, you're like, you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
It took us forever to get down off that scree slope.
Yeah.
I mean, we crossed the scree slope, and then we had that little spine of trees that you took us down.
Yeah, but we when we stood up and got ready to move, like we sat around as a group and we had a little talk, right?
Mm-hmm. By talk, what Andrew means is very direct declaration of how we will proceed. And that is, what did you say? Like ninjas with butterfly wings and socks on.
Yeah, something like that.
That was what you said.
Soft little baby feet.
I think
no noise.
Let me clarify for you. Do not make a sound. That's pretty much what Andrew was saying.
But I have never descended such a steep grade with such little noise with 4 people.
Yeah.
Ever.
It was impressive. We did good work that day.
Yeah.
It was good. But you get to a point where, what is this, day 3? I can't even keep track of this, day 3 or day 4. We got a lot hanging.
4.
This is day 5.
Day 5. Is it day 5?
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Because day 6 was the morning with, that's right.
Yeah.
We are hanging on this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the opportunity.
And we've seen him. We know we got a 6 point.
Yeah. This is real.
Yeah.
Right. There's what your strand of 100 points is, what Randy talks about. And it's so true. And we're on point like 80, but we are so far away still.
Yeah.
So the only path to this elk is down this gigantic set of scree with a couple lines of trees coming up and down. And we've got to descend into this cool little meadow, which we think is going to be our setup spot to call them in. Yeah. And we do successfully get down this scree patch one at a time, as carefully as possible, probably over the course of I don't know, what do you think, 40 minutes or something, 45?
Yeah. And it was probably, 700 feet descent?
At least, yeah. So, but I think it's an important time in our experience on that part of the hunt, because it's about being incredibly intentional with your move. It's not like, okay, let's just get over there and then we'll see what happens when we get close. No. From this step to that rock, everything hangs right now. And you put that in your head and you slow down. And like a chess match, get from here to there, and that's all that matters in this moment. And we did. It was like almost a moment of like, had a little chill, like, damn, man, look at that.
I remember we got to the point. I was treating your declaration with such importance that I bent over and picked up a rock and moved it so I could step where it was. I'm like, I'm not going to be the one
I am not
that kicks something down this hill. Literally hand moved the rock for you.
I love it though. It was like it was a small victory. You know.
And when we got to that bottom where we had said this is going to be our setup, and the wind was so perfect, I'm like, it never happens this well. We had a prevailing wind coming out of the east fast in our face. And you could tell that wind wasn't going to change much. It certainly wasn't going to change a 180 and go to him and his cows.
It was consistent.
The one problem we had is a cow had bedded up above where his last known location was. So we couldn't come in from that direction, which might have been a better approach, but I don't know if
higher or low.
Say. But and then he made that one bugle when we got down there. It was pretty half-baked bugle, but at least it gave us an idea. But there was, and that's where terrain never looks. When you look at it from afar or above, you get this false idea of what it's like. Then you get there, and there's some rolls and some. It's like, oh man, he could be in any of these little creases, or so. That's when we employed our plan, but I misjudged where he was at as far as distance. I thought we were 120 yards away from where that last bugle was.
And we were probably closer to 3, you know, about twice the distance maybe. And I remember we were sitting up there, and Dale and I had found a pretty good position. You guys were in bugle position, and we had a nice lane here and a couple over here, and I was, 40 or so, 25, a 30, and I'm like, all right, this is, again, you're one of these like, oh, this is like when I watch TV. It looks just like this. It's going to be great. He's going to stroll out here and not look at me, and it's going to be all beautiful and whatnot. And I don't know how long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, we weren't really getting a response. And kind of looked back at Randy, and Dale and I looked at each other, and Dale's running the camera behind me, and Randy just kind of says push, and so we started to move, and it went from a call him in situation, right, to go stalk him situation, and that's like there's like a flip in your head when that happens, because it goes from I found a nice spot where I can take probably 180 degrees. I've got predefined shooting lanes.
I've ranged them all.
I'm controlling this situation. This is my situation, and he's going to come into it, and I'm going to respond. That's an advantage, right? And now, throw all that stuff out. We're going to go up the hill, and the feeling you have, being the shooter on a team of 4. It's not just that. Gosh, I really want to get this bull because I want this all to be successful. But it's like I'm now responsible for the team's success. And this isn't about Andrew getting the bull. That's part of it, right? But it's about us being successful together. And it has taken an unbelievable amount of teamwork to get to where we are today. From bugling and listening and scouting and ninja feet over the shale just to get to that point. And now it's gone from I've created a controlled situation and the pressure is on me responding to how he comes to us, but instead now I'm going to move, don't know where he is, 300 this way. And that's, again, that mental fortitude, like every other variable, I'm tired, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, whatever.
It's gone.
Not even aware of it. Right now it is get from here to there and identify the bull and make a great shot. And that was like for me, that was a major turning point in the day, because it was like, it just was okay, the situation has changed again, and here we go.
Yeah. And it would have been nice if he would have been a little bit bigger bull, a little more aggressive bull.
Yeah.
I think he would have come in to the challenges. Mm-hmm. Or it would have been nice if he had no cows with him. Because
then a cow calls
would have brought, you get a bull like that, and you got a real good likelihood that he's going to come into cow calls if he doesn't have any cows. But unfortunately, he's got 3 cows, 1 up the hill and 2 bedded somewhere down with him.
Right.
And once it switched to you having to go to him, because now we've blown our cover. Yeah. At least he now knows we're there.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, something's
down there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now you guys got to go across that bench of thick, nasty brush.
Just hard bush, you know,
and you have no idea. He won't respond enough to get a real fix on. He is right there 60 yards ahead of me.
Yeah.
That's when it's easier, when at least they'll bugle from the bed or something.
Give me something.
This guy, somehow, the medication he'd taken for his whoppity laryngitis had worn off.
Totally.
In the time from when we got there to when you guys started moving forward.
Yeah.
He got lockjaw.
Yeah, I did. So, but we made that decision, right? And so Dale and I start working our way kind of, I don't know, for like 45 degrees, like halfway uphill, halfway lateral. And we're taking about, and it was funny recounting it later because I was like, oh, we went like 200. And Dale's like, dude, we went like 50. I was like, okay, well, because it just felt like we went so far, but we were moving so slowly. And I mean, it was one of the most intentional movements I've ever made. And we get across maybe, 3 or 4 kind of move and stop, trying to get some kind of identification where he is. And we are at like our 4th or 5th one, and Dale just grabs me by the shirt, just really tightly, and just goes, "Don't effing move." He's like, "Don't effing." Yeah. He's not saying effing, obviously, but and he says this like 4 or 5 times, and he had just like, his heart had stopped. He was like, he was just frozen in time. And I got an arrow knocked, and I'm ready to go, and I'm looking, and he's like, he's right there, and he's whispering almost so softly I can't hear him, and his head's in my ear practically. Yeah. I can see his tines. Right there. It takes me like 45 seconds to a minute, which felt like forever, to find the same thing he was looking at, because we're looking down this narrow little kind of tunnel of vegetation. There's all these trees and bushes coming out.
It was unbelievably thick.
Yeah, and there's off. I think it's probably 40 yards. I haven't ranged anything in a long time. And there's this gray dead log, and then there's all this thicket coming in from above, from the sides, from below. And I'm staring down here, and he's got his hand right in front of my eyeballs, trying to point where he's seeing these tines. And finally, it moves a little bit, and I see it. And sure enough, it's this bull's antlers, and they're nice and big. They're huge. And I'm like, oh my God! And that's when my heart just goes to 100. I'm just like, I'm in red line, And so at that moment, you can't see the bull. All we can see is his tines and his antlers moving kind of through some bush. And there's the smallest lane ever. I was telling Karsson later, it's like, when you're at the range and like you're shooting 50 and like the target it's like an 18-inch circle or something. That was the shooting lane. Yeah. And, later we were counting arrows arc, and there's all kinds of stuff. So probably wasn't a great lane, but it was all we had on visibility. And so we look over, and maybe down a couple dozen feet or so there's another little like better opening down the hill 45 degrees. And the best guess is, at some point he might stand up and expose himself there. And then we're trying to figure out what are the different opportunities here. And so I'm looking up. There's a little game trail that takes us up above him, too. And so all these things are racing through my mind and wondering what to do next. I mean, we are so close that whispering and moving at this point could blow the whole thing. Right. Yeah. And so we are frozen in time in this position. And
how far do you think you were?
I think 40 to 50 maybe. Okay. Yeah. Yards. Yeah. Yeah. And And I can't wait to see the video so I can actually deconstruct this. So, we're sitting there, and I think probably like a minute or two go by, and the bull stands up. And then we see his head and his eyes, and he's moving around. And he kind of takes a step forward into this tiny little window that we're looking through. And his head, Dale again, don't fucking move. Right? And we're sitting here, and I've just got enough tension on the bow where I'm almost thinking about drawing. And the bull turns his head, and his giant antlers are now visible. And you can just see his head, not his body. And his head turns over, and it's like he's looking right at us. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, and it kept me up that night, his black eye looking right through that window, right at us, and us sitting there frozen like an icicle, waiting for whatever the hell is going to happen next, right? And that happened. It feels like that takes 5 minutes. It probably took 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he kind of turns again. He takes a step forward. He takes another step forward. He exposes his body, and another step forward, and he's gone. And we're like, okay. So we kind of slowly move over to get ready to see this window where we're hoping that he exposes himself. And then 20 seconds go by, and then all of a sudden we hear like scraping. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's just taken a couple steps and he's scraping a tree or some bark or something. And this is great. Now we have a little noise cover. Maybe we have an opportunity to take some action here. Like, we're so close. It's like, and again, all of this is like hanging, it's intense. And we hear a little more scraping. And then we hear like some heavy, what I thought was scraping. And then you hear that kind of like hollow sound of
hooves on the ground.
Yeah, like the rocks kind of bumping against each other, and it starts to sound a little bit more like walking than scraping. And Dale kind of goes, he went straight down in my ear, and I'm like, no. And I unnock my arrow, and I rapidly take a couple steps down to try to see if I can get a little bit of a visibility through all the thick stuff, and then a few more, and then we realize he's gone, and we can hear the the shale tumbling, and he sees the cows off in the distance, and the cows had picked up and moved, and just like that, the whole thing was gone. Mm-hmm. The opportunity had vanished, and it happened over the course of just a couple of minutes, but to have, gotten that entire distance through all that time and energy and teamwork, and then had eye to eye at, I think, 40 to 50 yards with that bull. For me, maybe the bull of a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And then the opportunity vanished in just a couple of minutes was just a feeling that is indescribable, right? And for 12 hours, I just in my head about all the what ifs, what could have happened. Should I have drawn? Should I have taken that shot? Should we, we talked about all that. It just is what it is.
Right.
It just happened. Time happened. The experience happened. Incredibly grateful for it. But then it was gone. Yeah. And just like that.
There is no justice in hunting.
Yeah.
You in your mind, you're thinking, I deserve this. I've worked my butt off. Yeah. I deserve this.
Yeah, we put the time in. We are 4 days through serious hard work and energy to this moment. This has to unfold, right?
Well, when you guys came walking back, I was surprised how close actually we were to the bull. Mm-hmm. And he still wouldn't respond.
No response, yeah.
Because I would bet, from at least where I first saw you guys coming back through the woods, you guys were only 70 or 80 yards from us. So I'm sure Karsson and I, when we were calling, were within 150 yards of this bull, easily. Yep. But yet he would not make a peep.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah, no response.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
But when you were coming back, Dale got there before you did. And we're like, whoa. He's like, I'll let Andrew tell the story, which is always code word for this did not go how we wanted.
I was wondering. Yeah, because he's like, hey, just give me a few minutes to get down there. I'm like, I whatever, man. Yeah. All right. You're going to break the news for me?
That was a fun encounter, though.
Yeah, it was one of the most incredible outdoor experiences I have ever had. I mean, that is etched into my memory for life. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You notice how when Dale was filming him walking away across that scree slope, he kind of stopped and turned and looked back like, hey, Andrew, maybe next year, but up your game a little, man.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if I have any more game, man. This was everything I had.
It's kind of, I mean, we can make up what we think animals are thinking, but he did give that
stop and turn.
Yeah, stop. Like, you see these antlers right here?
You like that?
Sorry, buddy.
Not today, dude.
Maybe next year.
I know. Yeah, that's why I can't. It's just. Yeah.
But the good news was from that, if there is any silver lining to the cloud, is they walked over the mountain to the basins closer to our camp.
Right. They split the distance between where we were and our camp, which gave us some little sliver of hope that there was an opportunity still. Because they weren't running away.
Right.
We didn't spook them. They weren't, they didn't necessarily be alarmed. Right. It was, they got a little fuzzy feeling at some point and kind of moseyed on.
Ease out of here. Yeah. Well, that happened, that whole thing. What your 2:46 p.m. What you said you looked at?
Oh yeah,
the nugget. You looked at your watch after they walked off. What time was it?
So it was coming to the realization that this was leaving. The opportunity was leaving, and I had kind of scrambled down the hill as quietly as possible to see if I could just get some visibility. And I was like, oh, and I turn around and I look up the hill and I take a few more steps so I can see Dale through all the bush. And he looks at me and he does the sign where the hand across the neck, kill it, it's done. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, dang it, man. And I looked down at my watch just kind of randomly, not even intentionally, and it says 2:51. And I'm like, son of a, oh my God. Again, when this happens, your mind is just like all kinds of crazy stuff's happening, connections are happening. And I'm like, I think I could have drawn at 2:46. So, and I was just holding that in my head until later that night when I shared that with you guys. Yeah. It's just like, the whole experience of the hunt is just like, it's all just this incredible, variable after variable after variable after variable after variable. And then for Karsson to just kind of throw that question out and me to just randomly throw some number out there or some time out there, 2:46 mountain time. And then I looked down at my watch after that and I was like, the earth is just messing with me right now. Nature is having its way.
We rolled out of there. It took us a while to get down off there. That's the downside about climbing up that high. Then it takes a while to get back down to the trail.
And that creek is if we were carrying a couple 100 pounds out of there, somebody would have lost a leg.
Yeah, it would have been.
It gives you lots of time to think about what you've done as well. Totally. By yourself. Little alone time hiking out. Yeah.
And so we get there, and now it's about, I don't know, get down to the trail about 4:30-ish, something close to that. And we call on our way back to camp, and it's about, 5 o'clock when we get back to camp?
Yeah.
5:15?
Yeah.
And I was happy that you guys wanted to go do your own thing that evening. Not that you guys wanted to go do your own thing, but when I laid out all the things Dale and I had to do to take care of the llamas, move them around for pasturage and all this, and we had to film some segments. I think there's something valuable when you're filming, especially for our guests, because they're here to have a good hunt, not to be with a camera in their face all the time. Mm-hmm. So hopefully there was some relief of you guys being able to just, all right, we got 2.5 hours. We're going to go back down to the burn and have fun.
Yeah, and let's clarify, because I was I was kind of exhausted. Not physically exhausted, even though that was really tough. I had some more gas, but I was like, oh my. You just want to almost sit down for a little while next to a creek and just ponder life. I want to go down here and just be with myself for a little while. And Karsson is just he looks like Tigger. Yeah. All right, it's done. Let's go. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Come on. Let's go 5 miles this way. And I know where we saw him a couple days ago. Let's go. What do you mean we're going back to camp? He's not having it.
That was perturbed.
Yeah. And that was where, it's kind of well, we got some work to do. And Karsson's I'm going. And I'm like, I guess we're going.
I guess I'll come.
Here we go.
No, I'm glad you guys did.
Yeah. So it was cool though. But Karsson should talk about this one briefly. But that was kind of a neat experience.
Yeah. We I wanted to go back to my infamous hillside where we jumped the bulls, and that's 2 miles roughly from camp. And so we were moving quick to the point of I jogged a little bit.
It was a hustle. Yeah, it was a slow jog probably.
Yeah. So it was like a fast walk to a jog, stop, bugle, fast walk, jog, stop, bugle. And eventually we got down to that knob where things looked pretty good. There was that thick area. And our plan was to cow call a little bit in that thicker burn area, see if anything wanted to come in. And then we were going to climb up to where you spotted the elk that first day, which we didn't talk about, that ridiculous spotting. Okay, this deserves 10 seconds. Randy's walking, this is day 2. Randy's walking up the hill facing away from the other slope and catches out of the corner of his eye 500 yards away 2 bull elk in between trees. And he just stops, he's elk. And I was like, dude, you were looking the other way. How did you do that? It just killed me. But anyways.
Luck.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't think that's
I think there's a pattern to your luck, which makes it skill. So anyways, I'm like, okay, we want to get up to that general area where we have a good vantage point over these south-facing slopes, which for whatever reason we've seen them on. And so we're walking up there, calling into that really kind of bull's bedroom area that looks thick and rubbed and sign everywhere. And we walk through there, call through there. We're like, what? Where are they? This is their house. Come on. And so we just keep going anyways and get to the vantage point. And, well, we're on our way to the vantage point. And I pulled a half Randy. I was half looking, and I saw something over there. And I was like, elk, Andrew, elk, right there. And I was just like, don't move. I don't know why. I was just like, don't move. They're like 700 yards away. Don't freaking move. And I was like, okay, actually, you could, come here. They're right there, look.
So far away.
So, yeah, they were not going to see us move. But so we spot these 2 spikes. And my gauge for what's a shootable elk on this trip was, does it have a pulse and is it an elk?
Also, to clarify, that's what the tag says.
Yeah. The tag allowed. This was in any elk area.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're like, crap. It's call it 6:45 this time, and we're like, well, we're quite a ways away. We can try to get down into a decent position, cow call, try to get lower than we did the first time when we tried to call those first bulls, and cow call them. They're spikes. Definitely not going to bugle at them. That's one of the things I learned this trip. You call differently to different size elk, and that's an important lesson for me. So we go down there. We get in some good cover, and I think we're 200 yards out from them.
Yeah.
I think that was the best we could do with kind of our circumstance. And so we're cow calling at them, and I'm doing my best Randy. Like, I'm doing the Randy hands. I'm doing all the Randy stuff with my cow call. He does the sexy cow. What is it you say? Sorority girl call. Like, I'm available. Come on over.
I'm easy.
Yeah, I'm easy.
And I'm interested.
Yeah. So I was doing my Randy Newberg sorority girl call, and they looked at us, and then they just went back to feeding a little bit. And they weren't interested. And we called for 10, 15 minutes. And Andrew actually we haven't showed you this video. We're trying to do a Randy Newberg self-filmed hunt. We got to show you this.
Yeah, I got about 4 of them. I was going to show you and Dale later just in case.
Pretty funny.
In case something happened, I wanted there to be like a record content for it.
That's good.
So we're cow calling, nothing happens. And we're like, look at Andrew, and he looks at me, and we look at each other, and he says, let's bum rush this.
For the record, though, it's like 7:10 or something, shooting like 7:30. These things have 200 yards, and it's like, it's now or never, bro. Like, let's get on this. We already jogged here.
And the reason that became such a good option is right after we had spotted them, I hear this big bugle up the canyon, and it's definitely not these guys. And I'm like, one of our objectives in coming down here was to find what we're going to do the next morning.
Right. Because the next morning was our last morning.
That was, and we had a half day. Yeah. And so we're like, we need to know where an animal is, if not, kill one tonight. And so we're like, this kind of gives us 2 things. One, we know there's a bull up there that we're not going to spook if we move on these. And if these move out, that's, at least we had a chance at them. We didn't just let them pass. So we drop in there. This is like excitement level 10, like, because it's like Andrew's whole experience, but on a 20-minute timeline.
Way abbreviated.
versus a 6-hour timeline. So I'm like, we're both moving on them. We're going fast. And you would think a guy would learn a lesson, but it seems like we went up the wrong draw again.
Oh, really?
I don't know for sure, but we got up there, and it could have been sound, it could have been wind, and they were gone. And so it was good, though. They spooked. Whatever they did not scare the Big Daddy up the canyon, because that was our next morning. Mm-hmm. And that was my favorite of experience of this trip, personally.
Yeah, well, that encounter is one that would be a favorite of just about anybody, I think.
Yeah.
And when they came back that night, we'd wrapped up all of our chores, if you want to call it that, part of filming. Just we got to do a lot of different things that people don't really see behind the scenes, and so it was a good break for us to be able to get that done, and then a good break for you guys to be not burdened by our presence. But you guys had heard that bugle up there, and you're explaining it. I think we all, no one had to say that tomorrow's plan is we're going to go investigate what's up that canyon. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone really.
Yeah, I don't even think we decided that.
Did anyone have any other thought than that? For
I
the
don't
last
think so.
morning?
It was like that was it. Yeah.
So we head down there well before daylight, and Karsson is bugling, and nobody's answering.
Nobody.
And then we get down to that knob that we'd always kind of got to and thought, all right, this is the place. Mm-hmm. Nothing. And it goes to show a little bit about how the sound can really be affected by the landscape. Because this bull turns out to be up a canyon and around a slight corner, and even up a smaller little canyon that comes into the big canyon. And I don't think he could hear us with the wind coming from him to us.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And then we get up to that one patch, that unburned patch, where it was just rubbed to no end. Mm-hmm. And your very first bugle, he
hit back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we were like, it's coming together. We got another shot at this thing. Yeah.
But we didn't know what we had, because it didn't sound that.
It wasn't wasn't bold.
Right. I thought, this is a raghorn. But that's all right. We'll take a raghorn.
The other part of this is, again, just one of the big takeaways for me in this whole experience is just mindset. Mm-hmm. And, frustration and disappointment and all these things. And we're on our last morning, and there is pressure to break down camp and get out of Dodge, because frankly, life is still real, and there are responsibilities hanging, and that's coming. That's kind of like you're kind of getting out of the 5 days of pure wilderness, and you're starting to come to like, okay, how do I prepare to come out of it? Yeah. And and we're talking in the morning, and we're like, how much time do we have? Are we gonna hard stop at 11? And then it was like, well, no, it's if we don't like find something to chase really by 9-ish or 9:30, I mean, we've got to start like setting some parameters so that we're not trying to decide in the moment, because that's going to mean we're not packing out till 5, and that's going to be a failure. Yeah. And so, we're kind of having these debates and kind of drawing that. And I just randomly, for the sake of like giving everybody a mental benchmark, say, Karsson, you got 3 hours. And this is, I think, 6 in the morning, 5:45 or something. We're eating breakfast in the dark and getting ready to push, and we just said, hey, Karsson, you got 3 hours. Yeah. And so we had a point in time, at least something to go off of. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling better about that, because it created some clarity for the team on like, hey, look, like we're going to go try to make something happen, but let's get sober with it early on, so that we're not sitting out there at 10:45 going like, well, why don't we just climb that mountain? Right. Yeah. And when all this started to transpire, it was like, 7:30 or something. Something it was like early, and because
it took us a while to then spot them.
Yeah, and you're just like, what a gift to be out that early.
Yeah, and what was we spot them. Let's call it 8.
Yeah,
by the time we spot them, and then we realize, we're on 2 timers here. 1, we got to get out of camp. 2, they're uphill, and the downhill thermals are gonna wear off real
situation.
Yeah. So Randy looks at me and he goes, we got 40 minutes before those thermals switch. It's time to go. And I was like, this is deja vu. Same hill, timeline,
Karsson's
bull.
hill.
Yeah,
We've done
Good
this. This is
gracious,
the third time.
man.
Also, by the way, when Randy wants to move, get out of the way, because holy crap, he has got some legs, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is he across the creek already? I'm still on the hill.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
It was just, in my mind, even though we talked about, look, we're going to be out of here and back at camp packing up at 11.
Yeah.
When I saw that bull, this was a really, really nice public land bull. I mean,
Bigger than the 6-point. This was a year or two older.
You would be really excited to shoot this bull with a rifle.
Yeah.
He would be one you'd be like, I wonder if I need to taxidermist, even as a rifle kill.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, things going through my head were what you mentioned about the thermals was also about, finally, we got one that's a little more mature, a little more aggressive. He's bugling more. This is what we've been looking for.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people worry about noise and other stuff. When you're, what were we, 800 yards away, 700 yards?
Yeah.
And we're down in that canyon, the wind's coming from them to us. You can make a lot of noise, and it's not going to mess with them. But before we left, I made a mark of how high they were up that side canyon. And there was that one last tree that hadn't burned. I'm like, all right, if we get to that elevation, we're going to get straight across from them. And we're going to really lay the pipe to this guy, man. We are not, there's no more of this passive, something like a little bugle. And so we covered a lot of ground in a hurry.
Yeah.
But as quick as we got there, so this slope faces southeast. And the sun's coming up in the southeast. And it's the first slope that starts getting a thermal. Because it's the first slope that the sun starts warming. And I hate that when that happens. We needed him on a slope that faced northeast, not southeast.
Right.
So
we get up on this, I don't know, call it a ledge, and we set up in the kind of same format we've been doing: caller and second shooter in the back, and primary shooter and camera in the front. And this was where Randy went nuts. It was like something I've never seen this either. It was never incredible. Seen out of him. It was amazing. So we're setting up, and I range all my trees, and I'm like, all right, this is it. This is the final chance for anybody. We're on our final hours, and I get set up, and I'm like, this is crazy. I got, like Andrew was saying on his spot, he had 180 degrees. I had that same thing. I had a shot uphill if he came down and went to his right or left, and if he came down the way we were thinking, I had 4 different spots that were all between 20 and 25 yards, and I'm like, this is magic. This is it.
Yeah.
This is where the unpunched tag streak ends.
The one. It was all supposed to be like this because it'll make a great show.
Yeah.
You know?
And so the setup is we got to scale this really steep face to get. So there's this spine that comes down, and they're on the northeast side of this spine. And we're on the southwest side, and we're using this little spine to keep us from them and to keep the thermals going more northwest instead of rolling over to where they're at. And we get up at the same elevation where I'd marked that little tree. I'm like, all right, this is it. We're planting our stake right here.
Yeah.
And but you guys moved up to the edge, and I stayed just back over the crest.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they will come over the ledge just to investigate. They may not even make a sound or anything. But I don't know, what was it, 5 minutes of calling, and he hadn't even said anything yet.
Yeah, it was, and it felt like 15 for me, right? Like in that position. But it was, I would say 5-6 minutes of not just calling, but like you were smashing branches on trees and you were grunting and
this is
noises.
Where you haven't seen,
wild. If
you interact with Randy at a trade show or somewhere else, you're like, golly, this guy is he's just charismatic and well-tempered and all this. And then when you see him trying to bring a bull in, he's throwing sticks and bugling like, I mean, he's putting emotion, and I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
It was great. It was a performance of a lifetime.
Yeah, I wish we had film of that.
And it produced.
Yeah, and then so
You
5-6 minutes in, where I'm getting close to feeling like, crud, we got another non-responder, and then all of a sudden he lets off, and I'm like, he hasn't moved. If anything, he's moved up.
Right.
And we're like, So he's probably, I would call it 500 yards above us, maybe 400 when that bugle comes off.
Yeah, I don't know if he is that far.
Maybe not that far, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say he's about 100. I was thinking about 150 because for him to call down in that canyon, it kind of muffles everything. And that's why I walked up to that lip, and I'm like, all right, pal. I'm, I call it the ladies hold my beer kind of call. Because this dude's on my grass, and I'm going to go do my best Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn.
Hold my beer.
And I walked up to that ledge, and I pointed the bugle right at him, and I gave him everything I had.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold my beer, ladies.
Yeah. Well, so he responds to that first, finally responds on that first one.
Yeah.
And then it's, you keep going. You go harder and harder. Yeah. And then probably 2 minutes later, he cut the distance in half.
Yeah.
And then we're like, here it is.
Yeah.
It's finally working. Like we've been doing this for 6 days, and here we go. And I've got like the thumbnail of our episode in my head, and I've got this monster ball. I'm like, it's all playing out in my head. And this is it. Yeah. What am I going to do with so much meat? I have to buy a new freezer. Man. And so, he cuts the distance in half, and me and Dale are sitting there. We're backed up against a rock, and I'm looking at this location, and he can come down, like I said, and go left, and I've got a lane on him if he goes down and left to come investigate you, or if he comes down and right, I got him. And he comes down, and we see him walking down, just like in the big episodes, the big fancy episodes where you kill a big bull. It's just like that. He's like moseying down, and he stops on this little ledge, and I can see him really, really clearly, his face, his eyes, his antlers, everything through just a little bit of burnt timber. And I'm like, this is happening. Oh my gosh, finally. I got just stars in my mind. And he stands there for a little bit, and he's looking around, and you keep bugling. And I'm like, can he see Randy? What is he looking at? He's not looking at me. And that felt like, it was definitely 30 seconds, but it felt like 4 minutes of like, oh my gosh, what's he going to do? Yeah. And I literally had him, if he went 3 steps in the down in his right direction, that was my shot. That was the perfect shot. And it looked like that's what he's going to do. But then his cows start walking straight left, not down left. And I had no shots there. And he continues to look as they walk off a little bit, and you're calling, and he's like, where's this coming from? And then you let off one more call, and he had started to take a step or two to follow his cows, and he stops, and he looks at you, and I'm like, yes, he got him on that one. He's coming down. And then his cows like kind of made some noise running through the shale, or walking through the shale, and he followed them. And I was like, no, no.
And there it goes.
The downside of that setup was we had to get to the spine. We could no longer stay over on that kind of west side. We had to be a little more aggressive and get to that spine. And in the time it took us to get from where we first heard and saw him to our setup, they had moved uphill maybe 60 or 70 yards. And my preference would have been that I thought we were at the same level they were. Because it was so steep and rocky and cliffy above them. I'm like, they're not going to move uphill any further. Well, they did.
They did, yeah.
And so that's why he ended up coming into our setup from uphill. If we would have set up 40 yards further up the ridge, you would have had a 15-yard shot. But when you're 800 yards,
you can't know.
You don't know.
You can't know.
Everything is unknown until it's not, and you just make decisions on the information you have. And we made great decisions.
Yeah.
And the funny thing too is like in both Karsson's situation and mine, being higher on the hill would have put us in a better position. And it's a funny thing because I've really kind of been curious about that, and I just wonder if it's about being strategic with understanding where the sound is coming from and where your positioning should be. And you really need to put some thought into that. And I don't think we made the wrong decisions, but I've learned now from that to like really try to add all the variables in.
Right.
You know, it's not just where we hear the sound, because the sound is not necessarily coming directly from where the bull is. It's probably echoing off the side of a hill, and you know, where you think it's coming from and where the bull is are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's
well,
interesting.
if he would have given us just one more bugle before we started that setup, it would have told us, oh, he is
a little
40
higher.
yards further up than we thought.
Yeah.
And we would have set up, I would have set you guys up on that little lip that you saw him stop at.
Yep.
And I would have set up on your rock.
Yeah. Move the whole thing up.
That would have been, 40 yards maybe.
Yep.
And he would have come walking right into your lap. And he meant business.
Yeah.
He's like, because his cows, I saw his cows before I saw him. I can see his cows starting, like, they're going to come over here to see who is this guy, man. He's sounding like, hey.
He sounds dapper.
Yeah.
Must be a quarterback or something.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the water boy here. I'm going. And he was worried about that. And he came pretty aggressively and pretty quickly to keep himself between us and his cows.
Yeah.
And I still remember seeing him standing there broadside. I'm back behind you guys about 40 yards, and he's just looking at his cows broadside. And I just see these antlers. I'm like, oh boy, that's a good bull. Oh, please step out so Karsson can have a shot. But
There it is. Yep, that is what it is.
that is public land elk hunting.
Yes, it is.
Back to the 100 dots that got to be connected. I think on that one we did connect the first 99 dots.
Yeah.
I think so as well.
And but that's just all the more excitement that you'll dream about until the next time.
Yeah. And there's no doubt in either Andrew or I's mind that we are 10 times the hunters we were before we came here. You know, it's one thing to go on a rifle hunt with you, which is amazing, and I learn a lot. But when you have to get this close for encounters, and you have to know that much more about elk and their habitats that they like, and how fresh sign is, and what they'll respond to and what they won't, and all of that, it takes your whole hunting game, including rifle and everything else you might do, up a level. And that is definitely something I'm walking away from this hunt with. Is I think that this week will pay dividends for the rest of my hunting life.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I am also taking away you need to really, archery elk hunting, you need to apply focused intention on every decision you make.
Oh, yeah.
Because every one of those plays a role.
Yeah.
You know, and at all times being highly aware of your situation and what's going on with nature and wind and sun. And I've not applied that level of strategy in previous hunts, which probably has a lot to do with my success rate. It is not walking around in the woods with a bow and arrow. That's just not it.
Hope I find a
I
critter.
mean, I'm
None
sure
of that.
people land huge bulls that way, just getting lucky sometimes, and that tears me up inside, because I contrast what I see in social media and on TV with what we just did.
Yeah.
And what we just did was pretty impressive. I think we covered, Karsson was checking his 36
North of
miles.
35, yeah.
I think we've traversed well over 2,000, probably 2,500 or 3,000 vertical feet.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Over the course of those 5 days, way more than that in
Yeah.
vertical feet, because
Yeah.
each day we were doing 1,000.
Yeah, that's
Probably
right.
2,000 a day.
Yeah, that's
actually.
maybe
Sorry,
what the
2,000 a
math is.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have weather, and you have
Hunting
getting
pressure.
up. Yeah, hunting pressure. You got we're up before dawn. We're back at camp before or after the sun goes down, and just going after it. And I wouldn't change a thing.
No.
And I mean that with absolute sincerity. Right now, not having an elk to bring home, or a cover shot, or that photo that you can just share with everybody that doesn't need a story. It just says we rocked it. And instead, I've got to explain to everybody what it is, and that's something. And I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah. I am glad that everything that happened the way it did, because I'm now a better, more competent hunter, having gone together as a team, but with you and your insights and experience. And two is, you were sharing with me that it took you 6 years, right? So I've been at this for 4 maybe or something, archery. And I don't think I deserve it yet. Well, I don't, and honestly, it's a little bit like Brad Bush, right? Because if I had gotten a bull under Randy Newberg's wings, then that would have been incredible. And it would have made for a great show and some great content and a good success. We'd all have been very happy. Yeah. But I wouldn't have earned it on my own stripes. Right? I'd have been carried along. And there's something, and it's maybe this is the hard way kind of mindset thing, but Brad Bush earned his elk. Oh, that guy did it. Yeah. And there's definitely something about the team aspect, which I love, but he's got a stripe. Yeah. He made it happen on his own accord through his own knowledge, his own research, his own intention, his own ability and skill. And there's something about that I think most archery elk hunters are actually aspiring to. Like, that's the long game, is to prove your own individual ability and competence in the long run. Yeah. And so us walking away without a bull, I'm totally okay with. Yeah. I have come to terms with that. I'm happy with it, and in a lot of ways, it's a gift.
I'm in a lot of ways, it's a gift. Then. If you want to walk away without a bull, I'm your guy.
Randy's your guy. Next time, Newberg. Yeah. Also, for the record, I am sure the fact we don't have a bull is 110% Karsson and Andrew's fault. But
no, you're talking about the long game.
Yeah,
I think all hunters who are committed to the craft are playing the long game.
Yeah.
And in this hunt, the number of things that I'd made note of I think I made a comment out there is, how many times does something happen that might be coincidence, but you take it as fact and repeatable pattern? Mm-hmm. Like that last morning, we'd been calling, and I said, let's go up to that bench where all those scrapes are. That is a place they'd expect the bugle to come from, because there's not scrapes, rubs. Yeah. We get there, and this is just my mindset of, all right, if I was an elk, what would put me at ease if I heard something or saw something?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the place where there's a lot of rubs, the only unburned place, this little 2-acre piece, and let's bugle from there.
Yep.
The very first bugle from there, the big guy responds.
Yep.
So I'm thinking to myself, was that just coincidence, or have I? And it's happened to me. I've done that quite a few times, and it's worked. Yeah. But I don't want to think that this is knowledge and absolute fact when it could be coincidence.
Totally.
So when you're playing this longer game, and even when you've been doing it as many years as I have, you still start doubting yourself of, was that just luck? Do I really know what I'm doing? Or was that just, the planets aligned to give me like this little feeling of false confidence? And so I don't think anyone ever has it figured out. In fact, I would say the more I do these public land elk hunts, especially archery hunts, the more inferior I feel. I feel like I know so little of what the total package is. And when I first started, I didn't even know how big the package might be.
Right.
I'd watched too many Larry Jones and Dwight Schrute videos. You walk out there and Larry toots the horn a little bit, and they come in and Dwight shoots them, and
back in time for brunch.
Yeah. But no, they gave a little more reality to it than any other productions at that time. But I thought that's how big the package was.
Yeah.
Then you start doing this on huge landscapes. This place we were at is not a place where you're going to cover 20 miles in a day. Yeah. Or if you do 12 miles in a day, you're going to be so bushed the next day. It's going to be all you can do to just get out of the tent.
Yeah. It's not walking, it's climbing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that I don't care how long you've done it. It was a huge learning experience for me. I've got so many notes from these 6 days. Yeah. And you guys might be like, oh, well, he does this all the time, and this is kind of how it goes. No, this was a completely different outcome, completely different experience that taught me so many things that I'm kind of kicking myself. Why did I not think that they would move up the hill 50 yards by the time we got there? Well, I know I had thought that, but that tells me don't underestimate that an elk will go through some cliffy, rocky stuff if there's better feed 50 yards up the hill. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did.
Right.
And
that 1 point in the 100, right?
Yeah.
Put that piece of the puzzle together.
I whiffed it. And in where I had you guys set up.
I don't know if I'd say that, but.
So, but.
Yeah.
Well, and what else we're getting out of this, of course, is obviously we work at Gerber, and, you know, one of the mantras we have for developing our products is what is the user doing and how do we, Gerber, make the doing of that thing better? Mm-hmm. And so getting close, I mean, we both do this. We both hunt, we both fish, we both everyday carry products and backpack and things of that nature. But getting close with people that are the very core of this type of hunting is critical for us. And talking to you and gaining insights through not only this hunt, but all the years we've been working together on different projects and things, it's priceless for our business and for the products we're developing. And that's a huge takeaway for Gerber.
Yeah. Well, that's good. At least you can chalk it up to some intangible value.
For sure. Yeah. Actually, Karsson said something the other day in camp, and I think it was the night after, the morning after it had kind of like rained on us pretty hard. And he said, "There's no," and you were quoting somebody, not to attribute it to you, but there's no bad weather. There's only bad gear.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I think that's such a tremendous statement because. Yeah. As we've been going through this, we have been putting our own gear to the test, whether it's, Camp Cook Eat tools or the center drive, or we didn't
Principal.
Use the Vital as a new Principal, or I carry the fastball on me everywhere. And, you bring that stuff with you on these experiences and you put it to the test as the most hardcore end user could. And that is priceless for us. And we have actually a responsibility. Yeah. To put our stuff to test, and because our name's behind it, we trust it and believe it, and we can't make the great products that we do without living the life the way that you do. So these types of experiences, successful or not successful, however you want to define that, I define it as highly successful. Are invaluable. They directly inform the quality and intention of our product from a design and a durability, and it's just not an accident.
Developing a product, it's like hunting. There are 1,000 decisions in the multi-year process of developing a great product. And it's everything from 3D printed models, sandpapering something down because of the way it might create a hot spot if you're working on an elk for an extended period of time, or whether we want barrel spacers or a full back, so is it cleanable or not, and how can we cut the weight out, and all of that stuff. There are 1,000 decisions, and the more we know the true end user's process and what they're going through on a daily basis when they need that product, or even if it's just sitting in their pack, what's important about how it sits in the pack. Like all of those questions are decisions that my job is to make the process of throughout the entire multi-year process of developing a good product. And if you don't do this stuff, if you just surf a keyboard and type factors into Excel that you read in forums, you might do okay. Probably not though. Yeah. But getting out here doing this stuff and being the discerning end user yourself and being with the most core end user, that's you, Randy.
Oh, well, I don't know about
that's what informs excellent decisions that then create excellent products that serve the people that hopefully are listening to this podcast, and that's what we want.
Yeah. Well, you guys got the full frontal of public land elk hunting. There was no throttling back.
Yeah.
The only thing that we didn't get is having to pack that thing out of there. As far as effort, the emotional ups and downs, the exertion that you somehow find a way to dig down a little deeper, even though your knee's hurting or you got a hot spot on your foot or the sun is baking you. Like you said, Andrew, you don't even realize that when you think there's an elk up on top of that ridge where that bowl is on the other side. You just go. And you guys, we didn't hold back anything.
I don't think so. I think it was an all-in experience, and I'm walking away pretty impressed at how much we put out there. I don't think I was expecting us to go that hard.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I think that these types of experiences are, I mean, it's definitely multidimensional, but like part of life is figuring out how to deal with adversity and developing a mindset and an attitude and being conscious of that. And whether you're going after a new job or, a relationship thing, or you're overcoming some disaster in your life, like this type of activity, public land elk hunting, archery especially, is going to sharpen you to a point that you can deal with whatever life throws at you. And to put 2 days and a crazy amount of effort and energy and teamwork and intention into just the pursuit that I was on, and have that walk away from me, literally in my view, 50 yards, walk away in a moment, and to come to terms with that internally and mentally, and not assign blame or excuse or external factors of the poor camera guy. Poor guy. Jeez, what a bullet sponge.
Good thing he's not here.
Hopefully Dale can't hear.
Really screwed this one up, Dale.
that is what life is.
Right.
And nature's not nice. Nature's a brutal environment, man. And those elk, you're in their home, man. That's their turf. You're a foreigner. You don't deserve anything.
Yeah.
Right? As a matter of fact, every element out there is pushing you out. It doesn't want you there. So, you go out and do your thing, and you practice in the environment, with your team and whatnot. And that's good for you. It's good for your soul. It's good for your attitude in life. It's good for your mindset, and it builds stronger character. It makes you who you are. And I think that translates into everything you do, whether it's your job and product development, leading business, marital relationship stuff, your community, like how we participate in the greater world through conservation. This stuff it's what makes us, really important contributors to society, and we should seek out that adversity and face it with a smile and clear eyes. And I wouldn't change a single thing about this. And as a matter of fact, if you guys want to go tomorrow,
I'm down.
My bag is already packed. I'm down, ready to go. So I'm just incredibly grateful for the entire experience. And Randy, your knowledge and insights, I know you like to brush it off, but I'm literally walking away 10 times more competent and capable hunter. And I think that's just a tremendous gift. So I really appreciate it. And I know Karsson feels the same.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having a smile the whole time, because like I said a few times, it's never easy. And if you wake up or you decide, well, this is someone else's fault, or this is blah, 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 it just changes the whole thing. Having the positive attitude and the enthusiasm that you guys have, that's what allowed us to get through those tough first 3 days, and the last 2 days have these encounters that are just, they change your mind. They change your perspective. They are that fire that it's like putting kerosene on a small flame that's inside you, where you can't wait to go the next time. When do I get to go again? And so we wouldn't have got to those points if any of us had the bad attitude of, oh, poor me, or I deserve this, or I've worked hard, I've practiced all summer, why am I not getting a shot? Or it's like, so, but we've kept the audience a long time. One last thing I want to touch on is that, RMEF is the title sponsor of the Elk Talk podcast. And I'm just on rmef.org here reading an August 20th, 2019, so about a month old announcement of a project where they opened up 26,000 acres of prime public elk habitat. And I know you guys at Gerber are pretty big supporters of RMEF, and I think specifically their access initiative.
That's right.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah, and we support RMEF on a number of different fronts, from their local events and chapter banquets and donations, and of course all the stuff that people are highly aware of. But one of the things we've worked with them is to try to ensure that our contributions help specifically with creating access to hunters. That's something that we feel very close to. as being Oregonians. Like we have an incredible elk habitat in Oregon. And so we've kind of helped to ensure that our contributions work towards increasing access. And we feel that access is probably one of the most important things inside the RMEF mission of all the things that they do. So we've done that for years, and are always looking for new ways to help support the initiative. And it's people hear the call to action a lot, but this stuff feels like something that's on the side of your focused activity of hunting, but it's not. It should be at the front of your participation as a hunter in the community, because if you're not playing a role in RMEF's mission, you're actually like working against it in a way. So we can't support the organization enough, and I think what they're doing is just tremendous. It's never been a more important mission.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think of the great corporate partners RMEF has, their donors, their members, their volunteers. They've got 12,000 volunteers.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, you think about how many man hours of work.
And not light work. It's not like I went downtown to sell cookies for a day. That's not what,
No, these volunteers are just the core of what makes the Elk Foundation successful. And so I appreciate it when companies like Gerber put their, whatever you want to call it, their resources or their priority behind the mission of the Elk Foundation, because corporate partners are a big part of what moves that mission forward.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really appreciate you guys doing that. And I think is there anything we haven't covered?
No, that was a really good time. I think the one thing I'd just throw out to the audience, because I think I haven't spoken to your audience probably directly before, but Gerber's been in the outdoor business for a very long time. We're the number one provider of knives and tools to the U.S. military, right? And we actually offer always on discount to veterans and active duty military on the website. And so if you haven't checked out gerbergear.com, I'd really encourage you to do that, because we feel like we've, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, really started to address the needs of the expeditionary minded hunter and angler. And that's something that you're going to see a lot more from us on. And know that, this stuff, nothing about the products we release is an accident. Not a single thing is without intention and careful deliberation. Yeah. And, Karsson could talk about concept to product development for 4 days if you want that block of instruction. But, it's a really exciting time to be in gear, because capabilities, materials, supply chain stuff, the way we do industrial design is like, it's exciting. And us being a part of this community, and I hope folks can recognize that it's not just Karsson and I that are Gerber. We have, well over 100 people, not including our facility in Portland that produces product, that live and breathe this life. Yeah. And they are RMEF members. Right. They participate locally in all kinds of different chapters and organizations. And we're really excited to be a part of the community, and it's a really, it removes, we were talking about, it's not a job if you love what you do. Yeah. We love what we do. Yeah. Love it, because we get to participate in this community and support it by building products and playing a role in conservation. And what a gift! Yeah. What a gift! And gratitude doesn't even capture it all. Yeah, it's just a gift.
That's right.
Yeah. So we hope we see everybody out in the field. And if you see us at a booth or an event, please come by, say hi, and meet the team, because we're all out in it together.
Well, I'm looking at my hunttalk.com website, and there's a banner that you guys sent us that says go to gerbergear.com. Is that? I'm going to see where that link takes us.
gerbergear.com.
gerbergear.com. With promo code Randy, while you're shopping there, you can save 20%.
I think you guys should probably do that.
That seems like a really creative code, actually.
Randy.
Yeah. So, that's cool. Yeah. Go check that out. It's a great way to see some stuff. And
I appreciate your discount that you give for military veterans. I know you, Andrew, you did how many years as a ranger?
8 total, but 4.5 years light infantry, 101st Airborne Division, not ranger qualified. Worked with a lot of rangers, obviously. Okay. But which has some remarkable similarities to
because you were bringing up some of the similarities and parallels of,
I was like,
of your military background compared to elk hunting.
Yeah, rucksack, 50 pounds, go over that mountain because why not? You know, it's it's an incredible. There's a lot of correlation, and actually, if you know veterans, you should really encourage them to participate in specifically archery elk hunting, because I think it's an incredible way to kind of keep that part of your life, active.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate it, guys. We're going to have to run because we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Really?
And that's even before we do the intros.
Sorry about that.
No, it's a great story.
Yeah,
it's a great
cool.
hunt. If you're going to go on a hunt like that, you want to get the full story out there, so the whole world can say, you know what, don't go with Newberg.
Yeah, or Andrew or Karsson for that matter.
I just wish I could hear from Cory. I haven't heard from Cory for about 2 weeks, which tells me he's in the middle of his destination elk tour.
Yeah.
Out there capturing content, probably killing an elk every 3 or 4 days. Saying,
probably.
Newberg, this isn't that hard, man. Why do I have a boat anchor like you as a co-host on this podcast? My goodness. But anyhow, Cory, I hope you're doing well out there. I'm sure when you get to coverage, you'll send me a text message. I sent you one the other day because Karsson said, what would Cory Jacobson do? And we were at 8,500 feet, and I got 1x of coverage, and I text Cory, what would Cory Jacobson do in this situation? I didn't hear back from him.
What a guy.
What kind of friend is he?
He'd probably just bugle.
Well, folks, thanks so much for listening. Hope you've been out there hunting. If you haven't, I hope you get out there hunting and make sure it's fun. Whatever you do, keep a smile on your face, good, bad, indifferent. And just being there is one of the blessings of being an American, having these public lands and these opportunities. So go take advantage of it.